there with breaking news. A special counsel getting ready to indict the president's son. With our team learning that could come by the end of the month. What this new plan means for Hunter Biden. Also new tonight, that dangerous heat putting tons of pressure on millions of kids and schools that never needed air conditioning until now. We're live with where it feels like a very unseasonable 106 degrees in September. Then this video we're just getting in of that escaped killer in Pennsylvania that apparently shows how exactly he broke out of prison. The new question is tonight on how he got away and how long he might be able to stay on the run. Plus, in the backstory, we'll take you behind the scenes of an NBC News exclusive. Our Andrea Mitchell returning to a camp in Chad that's hosting thousands of refugees escaping genocide. The changes she's seeing there 2 decades later. And like a scene out of Jaws, the stunning rescue of 3 sailors and their story of survival after a wave of shark attacks. We'll explain later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting with that breaking news into us tonight. President Biden's son, Hunter, expected to face criminal charges brought by a special counsel by the end of this month. We're learning that just in the last hour from a new legal filing that's not super clear what charges this appears to be connected to, but it does seem to be related to an agreement over Hunter Biden possessing a gun while using illegal drugs. In this filing, the special counsel, David Weiss, says by September 29th, he plans to return a grand jury indictment against the president's son, Hunter. That's just 3 weeks from now. Remember this whole drama, right? When Hunter Biden and his attorneys thought they had a plea agreement with prosecutors worked out on multiple tax charges that would lead to this dismissal of the gun charge. That all fell apart, remember, in that courtroom in Delaware. That prompted Attorney General Merrick Garland to elevate David Weiss from a federal prosecutor to a special counsel. We've got this covered from every angle tonight. Monica Alva live in front of the White House. Our legal analyst, Danny Savallo, standing by. But I want to start with Tom Winter. Walk us through what we know right now, Tom, and any response that we're getting from Hunter Biden's team.
Right. Well, what we know, and I think you laid it out there perfectly, Hallie, is a bit of a question mark. I was just speaking with our legal analyst, Laura Jarrett, in her office, and we were trying to figure out, based on some of the technical things that were included in this filing, what specific charges we're actually talking about. And now we have some additional confusion, though it's not surprising what they filed from Hunter Biden's legal team saying, hey, we think on the gun charge that our pretrial diversion agreement is in effect, so we don't need to worry about that. We've already worked that out. Now, prosecutors have previously said, to no surprise to you, Hallie, or anybody else, that they disagree with that that's no longer in effect, if it ever was. And so at this point, anything is on the table. It really raises a lot of questions as to what specific charges will be brought here. And since there was a pretrial diversion agreement, it's not clear to me that the Speedy Trial Act even necessarily applies. But to bottom line it for everybody, look, we're probably going to be dealing with charges before September 29th, and it will be an indictment against the president's son.
What do we expect to see between now and that date, Tom? Because that is not necessarily, if I understand it correctly, a firm date, meaning something could happen on the 28th or the 21st or the 16th or whatever. Right.
Basically, they just said today, look, the earliest under the Speedy Trial Act guidelines that we would need to present an indictment is going to be that December 29th date. They said, don't worry about that. We're going to seek an indictment before then. As far as what we could see, I think it is likely, just based on reading the facts, talking with legal analysts, what's already been provided in a document this news organization sought in a letter to the court and was granted, the statement of facts on the original plea deal, that this is going to center around taxes. And since prosecutors have to prove venue first, Hallie, it looks like they would likely be charged in the Central District of California, think Los Angeles, and that's where we'll probably see the next action, if you will, from a legal standpoint in this case.
Tom Winter, thank you. Let me bring in Danny Savallo. So, Danny, from a legal perspective, what does this filing signal to you?
I think it's a conservative estimate that this is really just the next step towards indicting Hunter Biden, probably in the Central District of California, and probably related to tax charges, unless there's some dramatic new discovery that the government has uncovered in the time since. But if I'm Hunter Biden and his defense team, I'm really confused at this point, because remember, the entire reason the original diversionary agreement blew up was because the government and the defense didn't realize that the government planned to continue investigating and that this was not a global final resolution, which begs the question, if the government then had more information about criminality, why in the world would they even talk about a diversionary agreement with Hunter Biden if they were planning on indicting him later on? Or is this just some kind of, because you didn't agree to our terms, we're the government, then you're going to be indicted, and that's the only other avenue that we can see fit?
Danny Savalos, thank you. Still some question marks, obviously, from the legal perspective. Let me bring in Monica Alba, joining us from in front of the White House with the semi-political perspective. And, Mon, because this is also late breaking here, I don't believe we've heard anything yet from the White House on this new development. But we do know that President Biden, and as you and our team have reported, he has consistently stood by his son, right?
Absolutely, Hallie. And remember, when everything was heading toward what they thought was going to be this potential plea deal, there was this feeling of relief on the horizon. They thought that if this came together, this was going to be able to be a chapter that could be closed and put behind them. And that was something, I'm told by sources, that was really going to be meaningful for the president, because he carries this as a very heavy emotional toll, of course, as a father. And this is something that they wanted to see resolved. And so when all of that dissolved, and now that we're in this place, again, publicly, the White House has been very careful not to really weigh in on or comment specifically on anything related to the Department of Justice probes or this new special counsel. And that was the case a couple of weeks ago when all of that unfolded. And so today the White House is simply saying, we refer you to Hunter Biden's own personal attorneys. Again, they're not trying to weigh in, except to say that that separation between the White House and the Department of Justice is a huge priority for them. But certainly this is something that the president, the first lady, spend a lot of time thinking about. And remember, earlier in the summer, we did see Hunter Biden more prominently. He was at the White House. He was attending that state dinner. He was traveling with the president. We know he has been with the president recently for some family vacation, but we haven't seen him as visibly as during some other times, certainly during those first few years at the White House currently. Hallie.
Monica Alba, our White House correspondent. Mon, thank you. So listen, this dramatically hot weather is just totally sizzling so much of the country when, quite honestly, it should not be. It just shouldn't be this hot this late in the year. 85 million people are under these heat alerts across 21 states. Look at this map. From Phoenix to Texas, all the way up into the Northeast. We're talking record-setting heat. Maybe 50 records, roughly, could end up broken by the end of the day today. Look at this. Dallas and Houston above 100 degrees. Richmond, 100 as well. A lot of the spots you see are more than 10 degrees above average. Some schools are closing or sending students home early because this heat is so dangerous. Because remember, a lot of these schools, especially up north, they don't typically have to deal with this kind of heat. They've never had this happen during the school year. That's what's the deal in Boston. Listen.
We know that the heat begins earlier on in the summer when the school year is still going here in Boston, and that it's lasting when the school year is beginning to start as well.
The heat's also straining the power grid as the electric company in Texas is issuing a weather watch today through the end of the week because they think there's going to be a lot of demand as people run those air conditioners to try to stay at least somewhat comfortable. This heat wave comes as we have just lived through together the hottest summer ever recorded. Every month, June, July, August, hit a record for the hottest that it's ever been that particular month. I want to get to Aaron Gilchrist, who is outside here in Washington, D.C., where it felt like 106 degrees today. I know that the public schools made sure that kids came inside for recess, didn't let them be outdoors. Talk me through what you're seeing and what it's like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We broke records this summer for temperatures, right? And we know that this week we've seen so many instances where a record was broken or at least challenged in so many places here in the mid-Atlantic, in the Northeast, and down in the southern plains as well. And so now we're looking at a situation where the heat is going to continue, and there are concerns, as you had talked about, with schools in particular, where they don't have air conditioning because it doesn't typically seem to be something that they need, or you've got older buildings where the air conditioning may not be up to par in so many cases. You take Baltimore, for example, where today they had to cancel classes, in-person classes for some students and have them do school virtually. Other students were sent home very early in the day before the heat really got going. The heat index in Baltimore right now is 102, as it is here in D.C. And this is something that's concerned students who can't focus on learning when they're in the classroom, and parents as well. Listen to what we heard today from some of them.
The fans, they barely keep up with everything, and the halls get packed between every class, so it's horrible.
It's probably a good idea to let them out early, just so they don't suffer in the class.
And so heat emergencies have been declared, Hallie, here in D.C., in other cities through this evening and into tomorrow as well, because they expect that the temperatures are going to be right back up where they were today, like where they were today.
And there is an economic impact to that, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There are businesses, for example, in Texas. The Federal Reserve in Dallas looked at how this heat has been impacting folks in that state. It's 108 degrees. That's the feels like temperature in Dallas right now. And you can see on the graphic here, 24% of businesses say that the heat wave decreased production and revenue slightly or significantly for them. People are not showing up in stores to shop when there's so much heat to just to get from home to where they would go to shop. That's one of the impacts. Temperatures in work sites where people have to be outside for long hours, it's just harder for people to sustain themselves in those spaces. And when they do go to work in those spaces, productivity is down because you're moving more slowly, having to deal with the intense heat. And as we know, Texas is one of those places, Hallie, where the heat has been at 100 degrees or higher for much of the summer. And as we look at what's happening with the climate, there's reason to believe that we'll see more summers like this, summers that are longer and hotter for the years to come. Hallie?
Aaron Gilchrist live for us there, sweating it out in Washington, D.C., one of many places that are just feeling it today. Aaron, thank you. Let's take you to Pennsylvania, because in just the last few hours, we are learning more about how an escaped killer on the run there pulled off his prison break. I got to show you some of this video. Look at him. This is Danelo Cavalcante here in the prison yard Thursday morning before his escape. So look, you're going to see him climbing up the wall, sort of parallel to the ground there like that. He gets to the roof by sort of using his leverage to shimmy up on the side like that. He then apparently, according to police, crossed the roof, managed to jump the razor wire fence that surrounds the prison. Listen to the prison warden here.
This escape was similar to the methodology of the escape by Cavalcante, and the escape by Eagle Bolt allowed the prison to identify a deficiency in the exterior exercise yard where the escape occurred. Chester County Prison uses proven countermeasure security that are an industry standard. For example, high fencing, razor or barbed wire, secure doors or gates with salad ports to control movement, video cameras, and most importantly, correctional officers.
Okay, so he's laying out a bunch of the ways that they try to make sure that this escape didn't happen. Obviously, it did. And now the search perimeter, it is getting even bigger. It is expanding yet again because there have been some new sightings in the area. People think they've seen this guy out on the loose. He is now a week into being on the run. This whole chaotic manhunt, keeping schools in this area, just outside Philadelphia, shut down. We're also learning today that the inmate we told you about yesterday, who escaped a few months ago, also, by the way, got out in a very similar way by shimmying up onto the roof. He was caught almost immediately, just a half mile from the prison. Let me bring in Emily Aketa, who's joining us now. Lots of new information coming out in just the last couple hours. And that new video, pretty dramatic to see how this guy got out, in part, Emily, because it seems like it's right on camera. It's fairly obvious that somebody could do something like that, and then there he goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And something like this, as we were learning from authorities today, has happened before just a few months ago. After that incident in May when an inmate had escaped, they brought in security analysts, consultants to come in, and they decided, OK, we're going to add barbed wire to the roof. Well, that didn't stop, evidently, Cavalcante from escaping. And you can see on your screen there how he was able to shimmy up and then still be able to run across the roof and escape. In the words of police and authorities, they say, you know, quote, we believe the security measures we had in place were sufficient. They've proven otherwise. So what are they doing now? They're looking at installing a number of new measures, including fully enclose all outside exercise yards. Keep in mind, both of the inmates escaped from the exercise yards, install more cameras, and adjust officers' positions outside Hallie.
I have to think, Emily, as this manhunt is now stretching into day 7 now, it's been really disruptive to people in town. The kids can't go to school. People, I'm sure, are feeling on edge. We know that there was sort of this very chilling moment when somebody is telling NBC News they think this guy ended up in his house.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been disruptive emotionally. It's been emotionally taxing, but then also just in terms of day-to-day activities. We now have schools closed, 2 districts at least in the area that have closed for the 2nd day in a row. We know Longwood Gardens, the botanical garden, 1,000 acres where he was spotted just the other day, that remains closed. And then you have sites like this behind me, road closures, and these are everywhere as we continue to see the search zone for Cavalcante to expand and shift. The latest sighting that we're aware of, police talked about earlier today, was at a residence president's property late last night. They called 911 saying that they believe they saw him in the creek bed area, but they sweep the area, did not manage to track him down. So it's an urgent search that continues to remain urgent. They continue to pour more resources, additional personnel on the ground here, and already hundreds of law enforcement officers. I will say, Hallie, police believe that he's still within the perimeter. They believe he's in Pennsylvania. Here's more from police. Take a listen.
It's a difficult existence out there for somebody that's trying to do this. That will definitely take its toll. But imagine if you're being hunted. It adds a whole different level of stress as opposed to you're out there trying to find somebody. That level of stress has to be wearing on him.
So you can hear police are hoping that this sweltering heat actually works in their favor and really weighs Cavalcante down. They are now increasing the reward. Any critical tips leading to his bringing him back into custody now up to $20,000, Hallie.
Emily Aketa live for us there in Chester County, Pennsylvania. Emily, thank you. Late today on Capitol Hill, we are seeing the Senate's top Republican making clear he wants to move on. He wants to move on from questions about his health. And Mitch McConnell's first comments on this whole thing since his second freeze-up in a matter of weeks, and just about 24, 48 hours after the congressional physician ruled out a stroke or seizure disorder. Senator McConnell saying that doctor's note should be the end of the convo. Listen.
What Dr. Monahan's report addressed was concerns people might have that some things that happened to me did happen. Well, they didn't. And it's really, I have nothing to add to that. I think you pretty well covered the subject.
So that is coming about a week after this moment when the 81-year-old was asked about running for re-election and then was seemingly not able to speak for more than roughly 30 seconds. NBC's Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill for us. We also have some new reporting behind the scenes of that closed-door meeting with Senator McConnell and his fellow Republican senators here. Was not addressed, right? And we know that at least one senator, Josh Hallie, who, by the way, is no serious bestie to Mitch McConnell, is saying he does have some concerns, but he's not planning to challenge McConnell for his leadership role. McConnell's going to serve out his term, he hopes.
Yes, that's right, Hallie. McConnell has been defiant. He is making clear, he told reporters today at the press conference, peppered with multiple questions about his health, that he will serve out his Senate term, which ends in 2026, I should say ends January of 2027, and he will finish his term as Senate Republican leader, which goes through January of 2025. He said he has no further comment beyond that. He did not address questions about whether he plans to retire either as a Senate Republican leader or whether he'll seek re-election in November of 2026, which, by the way, was the question that led to that freeze-up last week. He kept pointing back to this doctor's note from the Capitol attending physician, which said he did not find evidence of various things that people had suspected, strokes or TIA. He also addressed in a private lunch meeting Senate Republican members in that closed-door luncheon, discussing his health issues, referring back to that doctor's note, according to multiple senators we spoke to about this. They also addressed questions about whether they have confidence in McConnell to remain Senate Republican leader. Let's play what some of them had to say.
If he has gone through a protocol that's appropriate for Leader McConnell's condition, I think that should settle the issue.
I am behind Senator McConnell, continuing to do his job.
Is this going to be a distraction? And, is he able to do the job?
I'm concerned that we're going to have a nation that's led by people who are checking out.
So you do hear some concerns there about the broader question of generational change. Hallie was alluding to that. Mitt Romney, very notably, was also suggesting that maybe it's time to get some younger people in there. But for the most part, Hallie, I think after these two episodes, Senate Republicans who were behind McConnell, and that's the vast majority of them, are not pulling their support for him. If these health episodes continue, then it's hard to know what's going to happen. Then the whole conversation resets. He's going to have to answer these questions all over again. But so far, it looks like he is not going to be, it looks like he is safe in that job for the time being, given that it's only those 48 Republican senators who get to make that decision.
Sahil Kapoor live for us on the Hill tonight. Sahil, thank you. Coming up, a sick American stuck in a cave in Turkey, like 4,000 feet underground. Tonight, the urgency from rescuers as they're drawing up plans to try to get him out. Plus, what NBC News is learning tonight about new COVID booster shots from our sources and how soon you might be able to get one. That's coming up. You are about to see an historic shot. The first televised look inside the courtroom for a criminal hearing involving a former president of the United States. Here it is. You see the judge there, Scott McAfee. Just before he ends up denying a motion from two of Mr. Trump's co-defendants who wanted to separate their cases from each other. So what does that mean? It means Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesebro are going to have to go to court October 23rd since they asked for a speedy trial. They're going to face charges. They're part of this 19-person conspiracy that they illegally tried to overturn Donald Trump's legitimate 2020 election loss in Georgia. It comes as we're getting some never-before-heard details from prosecutors saying they could call something like 150 witnesses and that a trial could take 4 months. That doesn't even include jury selection or include if somebody like Mr. Trump ends up wanting to testify. And with all these legal filings going back and forth, even the judge is kind of skeptical of that timeline.
If we compress our timeline to 40-something days, our ability to even be able to really weigh those and think through these issues, again, it just seems a bit unrealistic to think that we can handle all 19 in 40-something days.
Remember, all 19 co-defendants in this case are waiving their right to show up in person for their arraignment. They're all pleading not guilty. Ken Delanian has been following this one and joins us now. So, rough timeline here. Walk us through the most important things you need to know about what happened today.
Well, the first thing you should know, Hallie, is there's another RICO case going on in Atlanta where it's taking 8 months to pick a jury. So that gives you an idea of how these complex cases go. What happened today was that lawyers for Chesebro and Sidney Powell, who was putting forward some of those bogus allegations of fraud on Donald Trump's behalf, tried to sever themselves from one another and from the rest of the case. And the judge denied their motion to sever from one another, saying that they were similar enough that they should go to trial together. I think we have sound from Chesebro's lawyer making the argument. Take a listen.
It's pretty clear that the state is trying to use RICO in order to connect 3 or 4 different alleged conspiracies into one.
So that was his argument, that, and Powell's lawyer said the same thing, like, hey, my client had nothing to do with some of these allegations that happened in this other county. She wasn't even there. But that's the nature of a RICO case, right? They've grouped together all of these 19 defendants and said they've engaged in a conspiracy. It doesn't mean every one of them did all the stuff in the indictment. And the judge agreed. The judge said that, no, those 2 defendants should have their trial together. But he hasn't decided yet whether they can sever from the other defendants and get their speedy trial that they want in October. And as you said, he's skeptical that trial could take place in 4 months. I think the bottom line here is that what's pretty clear from today is that it's unlikely that we're going to see Donald Trump on trial in this case before the 2024 election, Hallie.
Ken Delanian, thank you very much. Tonight, a race against time to save an American who's stuck in a cave, sick, more than 3,000 feet underground in Turkey. We're talking about 40-year-old Mark Dickey. See him here. He was on a caving expedition in the 3rd deepest cave in Turkey. He was with 14 other explorers when he got sick with gastrointestinal bleeding. Now he's got to get hoisted out to get medical care. NBC's Raf Sanchez is covering this one and joins us now. How is he doing? Where are they in this very urgent and desperate push to try to save him?
Very urgent, very desperate. Hallie, this may be the beginning of one of the largest and most complex cave rescues we have ever seen. Here's the deal. As you said, Mark Dickey is a 40-year-old American, and Hallie, he is himself an expert in cave rescues, but he is now some 3,000 feet deep in the 3rd deepest cave in Turkey. He was part of an expedition that went underground last week. He started suffering gastrointestinal bleeding, basically internal bleeding in the stomach, and he now is stuck underground, unable to get out. I want to give you the latest update from the Turkish Caving Federation. This is at 3:30 Eastern Time. They say the latest update from the cave rescue teams is that Mark's condition is stabilizing. His bleeding has stopped and he's able to walk with assistance, but it is not possible for him to get out without a stretcher. The teams are continuing to set up rope lines inside the cave to remove the stretcher, and they say, Hallie, the removal of Mark is expected to begin in the next couple of hours. And the way this is going to work in theory, this is incredibly complicated, but the way it's going to work in theory is that you are going going to have basically a series of relay teams who are going to pass this stretcher one to another. So you'll have a Turkish team at the entrance to the cave responsible for the first 600 feet. You might have a Polish team or a Bulgarian team responsible for the next 600. And their hope is that kind of hands by patient hands, they're going to be able to work their way through this unbelievably complicated cave shaft with this stretcher carrying Mark Dickey and get him to the surface. Hallie, the way they were able to stabilize him underground was by bringing both blood and frozen plasma down into the cave to this base camp where he's at now. And now it's up to this rescue team at a sort of operations center back on the surface to try to plan and then pull off this very complicated rescue.
It is just incredible to think about. So many people around the world are thinking of him, hoping he gets out safely. I know you'll be all over it. Raf Sanchez, thank you so much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, officials in New York say there's a warrant out for the arrest of Drew Barrymore's alleged stalker because he didn't show up to get a GPS ankle monitor fitted. Chad Michael Bustow was arrested in August after police say he was riding a bike up private driveways in the Hamptons looking for Barrymore. Officials say they just don't know where he is now. Number 2, NBC News is learning the FDA plans to greenlight updated boosters for COVID as early as Friday, according to multiple sources familiar with that plan. The shots will target a specific subvariant of Omicron, but experts say it's going to be effective against a whole range of those COVID variants. The booster still needs sign-off from the CDC, including more details on who should get the shot and when they should get it. Number 3, police here in D.C. are on the hunt for a suspect who they say escaped from a local hospital. Described as a black man with shoulder-length dreadlocks wearing a white suit and one red shoe. Police have not confirmed what he's accused of, but they say people shouldn't go near him. They should call 911 instead. Number 4, officials say 4 Roman swords dating back at least 1,900 years were found at a cave in Israel. Super well preserved. The researchers think that these swords were stashed away by Jewish rebels during an uprising against the Roman Empire. Number 5, perhaps a bit of satisfaction for fans of the Rolling Stones. They say they're going to release a new album October 20th called Hackney Diamonds. It's going to be the Rolling Stones' first album in 18 years. It's also the band's first new music since the death of drummer Charlie Watts back in 2021. Apparently, it'll include appearances from singers like Lady Gaga, Paul McCartney, and Stevie Wonder, too. When we come back, a bit of breaking news. A federal judge is ordering Texas to take out those controversial border buoys we've been talking about on the river that separates that state from Mexico. We're getting one of our reporters read in on that. We're going to have that right when we get back. Plus, is 90210 now a no-go? If you are very online, you might think so, but LA's mayor is telling us tonight even those smash and grabs mean it's not the case. What this so-called crime crisis really looks like in that part of the city. Plus, a different kind of smash and grab. A 3-legged bear breaking into somebody's home in Florida, taking something you may not expect. I kid you not. Like, guess what it is? I don't think you're going to be able to. We'll tell you, though. Give us a sec. And Roseanne were the biggest shows in the country back in the early 90s. Still, though, something like 75 million people do have cable, maybe even you. And since Friday, about a fifth of them cannot get what they paid for. Specifically ESPN and ABC. Look at these. These are the messages that now pop up for Spectrum users. Messages asking people to beg Disney for a fair deal. So all these customers are missing stuff like the U.S. Open, big college football games. If this doesn't get sorted soon, they're going to miss Monday Night Football, too. Spectrum CEO says, hey, their company's paying too much. They're threatening Disney in a call with investors saying we're either moving forward with a new collaborative video model or we are moving on. It is a messy public fight with Disney clapping back, actually asking people, hey, it's fine, don't use cable, go stream us instead, they're saying. Switch to Hulu. Remember, Disney owns Hulu. Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver is joining us now. Why can't they get to a deal, right? Because caught in the middle are all these subscribers who are going to have to maybe pay more no matter how it shakes out, right? And they're missing the stuff they want to see, like tennis or football or whatever.
Yeah, this happened right as the college football season started, right before professional football, and right in the middle of a great U.S. Open. 15 million customers impacted. Why? It's all about the money, right? Because cable and broadcast networks have been raising the fees for these cable companies, like Spectrum, which is Charter, and they're tired of paying these fees and passing those on to customers who are cutting the cord anyway, as you just indicated. TV and broadcast was just about 49% of consumption in the last year or so. We have these streaming services, YouTube, Netflix, et cetera. They're up to about 39%. So more and more people cutting the cord, watching NBC News Now online or through YouTube, and that's the issue right here.
So it does feel in some ways like a kind of proxy battle here, this particular fight for the bigger picture future of TV, right? Huge streaming push. In the last 5 minutes, we found out Disney's making this new offer for its basic Disney Plus for just $2 a month for 3 months, right? Like they are trying to get people over to the streaming side. If there is not a deal here, do you read it as a sign that like cable's got big problems on its hands?
Yeah, cable has had big problems on its hands. This is just the latest crisis, and Disney is using big personalities like Stephen A. Smith to tell people to go and sign up for Hulu and other services. So they're using all the force that they have, and they have a lot of content, and they have streaming services. By the way, they raised the subscription price for Disney Plus already a couple of times. They'll probably do it again because that's the future, and that's the reality that cable companies are facing with content providers.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Lots to watch on that front. Lots of customers hoping to watch, too. Appreciate it. So tonight, the mayor out at Beverly Hills is fighting back after a viral video claiming to show the famous 90210 zip code under a retail crisis. You see the headlines here. R.I.P. Beverly Hills, talking about a quote-unquote crime wave, calling it a wasteland. Mayor says, hey, that's not true.
None of the stores they showed were actually in Beverly Hills. I don't know of any stores that shut down as a result of crime or criminal activity.
So the crime he's talking about, those smash and grabs we've been talking about, he says those aren't necessarily in his zip code, right, in Beverly Hills. We saw just last week it was Pasadena, not super close to Beverly Hills, where 3 people robbed a jewelry store, stole $500,000 worth of stuff. Early last month, we saw dozens of people in masks swarming a Nordstrom in a mall in the northern part of L.A. County. Again, not Beverly Hills, stealing a bunch of fancy bags, some other stuff, something like $350,000 there. I want to bring in Dana Griffin for more on this. Like we just laid out here, Dana, these crimes are happening sort of generally in L.A. Like it is indisputable that these crimes are happening, but it's not specifically Beverly Hills. Why are the two getting linked? And what else did you hear in your conversation with the mayor?
Yeah, Hallie, they're getting linked because this is still Los Angeles County. So when you saw that viral TikTok video, the mayor says that that's not entirely accurate. And he says actually none of the stores featured in that TikTok video were stores that are located in Beverly Hills. Right now we are standing on the famed Rodeo Drive. We are seeing dozens of people out walking, families, couples, young kids. And just standing out here, we do not get the sense that this is a crime-ridden area where shops have closed down. There's one shop to my left that has a leased sign on it, almost assuming that a new business is about to move in. The mayor says that they may have had 1 or 2 smash and grabs, but that was at least a year ago. And when I asked, is there any truth to this? He says no. And he says part of that is because of the extra measures that they have implemented to keep crime low. Listen to what he told me moments ago.
We have drones that fly 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 2,500 cameras that monitor the streets 24/7. We have a real-time watch center where we have not only police officers, but security people who also patrol our streets, who watch cameras all the time.
Mayor Julian Gold also said that, businesses leaving is a normal process for businesses. Some did tap out, so to speak, during the pandemic, and that was more so because of the labor shortage. He said it did not have anything to do with crime, at least not to his knowledge. And he says, considering they're doing pretty well. Hallie?
What is it about L.A., right? Is it more susceptible to these kinds of crimes, just L.A. County as a whole? Is it just because it is it's a big city, it's got lots of fancy stuff in it that make it attractive to thieves?
You're right. There are a lot of fancy stores that are very attractive to thieves. But something that we've seen not only from the mayor, but law enforcement talk about is consequences. California, the state legislature has passed several propositions to decriminalize some crimes that were once a felony. They are now a misdemeanor. And because of the overturning of the jails to try to keep the population low, even if you commit some of those crimes, you don't have to stay overnight. So for these young kids who we're seeing in these smash and grabs, there are very few consequences, according to the mayor. And they think that is what's fueling some of these smash and grabs and the organized theft rings that we've seen throughout the county and also throughout the country. Listen to what else he told me.
There are no consequences. If you can actually walk into a department store and walk out and nobody is going to stop you and nobody's going to prosecute you, then why not?
And Hallie, right now, if I were to walk into one of these stores, steal something under $1,000, that would be considered a misdemeanor. But over that, that's where you're running into the felony. So some kids, if they're smart, they're going in knowing what to take so that they aren't punished, or they feel that, oh, you know, a lot of the juvenile centers have shut down, so they're not going to send me there. So we've heard from a lot of leaders who want more accountability. They want more consequences for these crimes, and that is going to have to start at the state legislature. Hallie?
Dana Griffin, lots to follow there out in California. Dana, thank you. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it's tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, police in South Florida are looking for a passenger from a Carnival cruise line reported missing after the ship returned to port in Miami on Monday. The cruise line says he was last seen by his cabin mate right around the time people were supposed to get off the ship. They couldn't find him anywhere on board. The Coast Guard looked in the water nearby, but they didn't have any luck either. Also, out of our Southern Bureau, take a look at this incredible video. A three-legged bear breaks into a family's patio in Florida. That is not the start to a joke. That is the real deal. He heads for their fridge. You know what he gets? He gets a few White Claws, man, a few hard seltzers to head into the September season. He crushed him, too. Family's dog, total hero, barked, scared the bear off. There the bear goes on all three legs. And out of our Western Bureau, a couple in Alaska just reunited with their cat almost a month after their whole house collapsed into a river during a huge flood. The cat, named Leo, was missing for almost a month, 26 days. Incredibly, the couple says he looks healthy and only lost a little bit of weight. That's a lovely reunion for them. So listen, we've got some news breaking into us in just the last couple of minutes here. A federal judge has just told Texas that they've got to take out those floating buoys, those border barriers, very controversial, that were put up in the river separating Texas and Mexico to keep out migrants. We've been covering this, right? These are the buoys. They were put in place back in July. There's razor wire, something similar to that on top to help keep people from crossing over. This ruling is essentially a win for the Biden administration, which sued Texas and the state's governor to try to get this stuff taken out. I want to bring in NBC's Guad Venegas, who is joining us now, who has covered this. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, promised that there would be a legal fight over this. Does this ruling mean that that's over, or is there potentially more to come? Could this go to the Supreme Court?
Right, Hallie. So according to what we've heard, we just heard back from the state of Texas, this could continue in the courts. This is just another battle between Texas and the federal government when it comes to the border, Hallie. So we have a statement from the state of Texas. That statement indicates that they do plan to appeal this decision. Specifically, it says Texas will appeal. The court decision really prolongs President Biden's refusal to acknowledge that Texas is rightfully stepping in to do the job that he should have been doing all along. Now, the state of Texas has taken lots of actions that are very unusual for states when it comes to the immigration problem. We know that in Texas, state troopers often do the job that would normally be done by immigration officers by conducting stops within the state. And they've also done a lot of work when it comes to detaining undocumented immigrants within the state and at the border. The governor has used the National Guard to patrol these areas. And of course, the latest news were these buoys that had been installed between Mexico and the state of Texas. In fact, there was some conversation on whether those buoys were inside of Mexico territory or American territory. So on the Mexican side, they were also looking into the legality of these buoys. But for now, the latest decision in American courts indicates, or at least is asking the state of Texas to remove these buoys. But as we've just heard from the state of Texas, Hallie, the governor plans to keep fighting this in court.
Guad Venegas, thank you for being on top of that one for us as it is breaking into us here at NBC News tonight. Appreciate it. Coming up, the most serious threat yet against a top Spanish soccer official. What we now know about a star player's criminal complaint against him. Plus, our Andrea Mitchell traveling with the U.S. ambassador to the UN to a refugee camp in Chad near the Sudanese border. Her exclusive reporting on an investigation into potential genocide in our backstory tonight. She's pulling back the curtain in just a sec. Time now now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, we're taking you back to 2005, when our Andrea Mitchell traveled to Sudan with then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. See her there, reporting on an international pressure campaign to force the Sudanese government to stop the ethnic cleansing that forced thousands of refugees to escape in a neighboring Chad. Well, today, nearly 20 years later, the story's not that different. Significantly, at least. In an NBC News exclusive, Andrea is reporting tonight from a sprawling refugee camp in Chad, where thousands of women and children are looking for safety from what the UN is investigating as another genocide in Darfur. This time, Andrea is traveling with UN Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. She is joining us now live from Chad. Andrea, we're so grateful to have you. You've been doing such incredible reporting, and you know that this segment is all about pulling back the curtain a little bit. Take us behind the scenes with you on what it's like to report from this part of the world here after you did it, you know, almost 20 years ago, too.
Well, first, there's the emotional impact of that, because there's 20 years later, this is an emerging genocide. It's being investigated, Hallie, as a genocide. Almost 400,000 people have left already, refugees, to Chad, more to neighboring countries, and 2,000 people a day just coming across the border to Chad. We were at that border today, and Linda Thomas-Greenfield was, you know, talking about this because she wanted to hear in person what has been reported to her. She was actually 40 years ago, starting as a Foreign Service officer, doing refugee reporting for the State Department, a young Foreign Service officer for all of Africa. Now each country has their own, refugee coordinator, but now that's her responsibility. I wanted to play a little bit of our interview where I asked her about how nothing has changed in all these, in 18 years since I was there. It was declared a genocide. Today, they sanctioned some of the leaders of one of the militias, the RSF. And to do that, they had to decide that there were mass atrocities. Now there's an investigation by the UN into reports of mass graves. There are actually photos of that that have been seen, horrendous photos. And so I asked her about the discouraging aspects of this for her and for the world.
What we see happening in Darfur right now pertains to what we saw happening in Darfur in 2004. So we have gone backward in those years, and that is why it is so important that we hold those responsible accountable. And I will, as you know, announce the sanctioning of senior individuals from the RSF who have been engaged in the commission of atrocities in Darfur.
So you asked about how it works to work in this area for us and for the U.S. diplomats. They ran into a problem with one of the local officials. So our helicopter, a UN helicopter, could not take off as scheduled. So we got there very late for the amount of time when we had to take off because there are no landing lights. So we had to take off before sundown. And a UN chopper, then a flight, then back to the capital where we are tonight in Chad. So it meant that we didn't have enough time to set up that interview. We didn't have, I met with some refugees. I went to the hospital. I talked to some of the doctors, but we couldn't do the extensive interviewing that we wanted to do, having, gone so far. But we got certainly a lot of reporting in the hours, the daylight hours we were on the ground.
Yeah, and that speaks to just the complicated logistics, Andrea, of a trip like this when you're reporting it, not to mention, obviously, sort of the impact of doing the reporting itself.
And there was no internet, by the way, all day, so we couldn't go live from there. So, and it's spotty even here, but there was no communications at all the whole time we were on the ground. We are so used to having instant communications and being able to reach satellites with sat phones, and none of that existed. So,
Andrea,
but the focus is on the people, and that's what the UN ambassador is determined to make it.
And she's made it extremely clear with you, and as your presence there is attesting to. Andrea Mitchell, we thank you, your team, your producer, for being there, for bringing us this story. I appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, 3 men rescued just in time after sharks attacked their boat so hard it started to sink. Why that happened to their catamaran in the first place, and this incredible story of survival coming up. The head of the Spanish Soccer Federation is facing a new legal challenge, maybe his most serious yet, for what one soccer star says was a non-consensual kiss at the Women's World Cup. We're talking about Jenny Hermoso, who is now formally accusing Luis Rubiales of sexual assault. She's filing a criminal complaint that now clears the way for Spanish prosecutors to open a case against Rubiales. He already faces a handful of other challenges, including one by a governmental panel that could end up getting him booted off the Spanish Soccer Federation. But this criminal complaint, again, criminal, it appears to be the most serious thing against Rubiales we've seen so far, because under a sexual consent law passed in Spain last year, Rubiales could face a prison sentence of up to 4 years if he's found guilty, or a fine. Steph Young covers soccer for The Athletic and is joining us now. So, Steph, Rubiales says the kiss was consensual. Jenny Hermoso says it was not consensual, which means it was not consensual, right? He now is facing a lot of challenges, not just legally, but professionally. Is there any way that he stays in his position? He's already been suspended.
I don't think that there's a way that he stays in. There's too many things stacked against him. You know, FIFA has provisionally suspended him. The various governors who are involved with La Liga some of them have issued criticism, La Liga being the Spanish, the local league. And there's just, I think, a little too much going on. He's losing some allies as well. Jorge Vilda just got fired, who was the coach of the women's national team. Right. So I think that the weight of all of these things will eventually leverage him out of there.
Can you explain why there are some commentators who are describing what's happening right now, as somewhat of Spain's Me Too moment?
Sure. It's kind of sparked this larger discussion about, the dignity, the bodily autonomy of women, especially coming from a federation that actually has a long history of allegations of misogyny. The previous coach, Ignacio Carrera, was in there for 27 years and also left under allegations of, sexist behavior. So this is a deeply entrenched situation. It's cultural, it's systemic. So I think when they're trying to address what, Luis Rubiales did, I think they're also addressing an entire culture that led to a mindset that said, I can do this to my player on the world's biggest stage.
Steph Young, thank you so much. Lots to watch on this one. Appreciate you being with us from The Athletic. Thanks. So an incredible story of survival out of Australia tonight. 3 men rescued from the middle of the ocean after tiny sharks attacked their boat so many times it started to sink. Here's Noah Pransky with more.
Tonight, 3 sailors stranded at sea, now safe after this incredible rescue, necessary when their 30-foot boat was attacked over and over again by small sharks for days, hundreds of miles off the coast of Australia. Here you can see half the boat submerged in water as rescue choppers circled above to save the 3 crew members. The 2 Russians and 1 Frenchman issued a distress call early on Wednesday when it was clear they couldn't make it back to land on their own.
The emergency beacon absolutely saved their life. It enabled the Rescue Coordination Centre to identify their precise location and tailor the most appropriate and quickest response to rescue them.
The sailors were supposed to go from the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu to the Australian city of Cairns as part of a years-long around-the-world journey. But they never made it because these cookie-cutter sharks, a small species, check them out, only 16 inches long, but certainly menacing, attacked the catamaran repeatedly. First, the boat started to take on water, but was able to trudge along for another 100 miles before the sharks attacked again, this time piercing its right side, and the boat then began to sink completely.
There's many reasons that vessels are attacked by sharks. However, the motivations of these sharks is unclear.
The sailors, according to Australian officials, all happy to be rescued unharmed, and their belongings all safe tonight as well. But the catamaran lost at sea, leaving the future of their grand round-the-world voyage up in the air. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
Thanks to Noah for that, with those 3 guys expected to arrive safely in Australia in the next couple of hours. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more for you coming up right now. We are coming on the air with breaking news tonight. A special counsel getting ready to indict the president's son. With our team learning that could happen by the end of the month. What this new plan means for Hunter Biden and the new details we're just getting in the last 45 minutes or so. Also new tonight, this dangerous heat putting tons of pressure on millions of kids who never needed air conditioning in their schools until now. We're live where it feels like a very unseasonable 106 degrees in September. In just a minute. Plus, breaking in just the last hour, a federal judge is siding with the Biden administration, forcing Texas to move those controversial floating buoys out of the river, separating that state from Mexico. We've got more on the legal fight that could set up. That new reaction from the Senate's top Republican on those very public freezing episodes. His somewhat defiant response to questions tonight, why they may be only likely to lead to more. Plus, why a fight between Disney and a big cable company could be a proxy battle for the war over TV's future. And if you're a Spectrum customer, you're going to want to listen up. That's later on in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and we are starting with that breaking news tonight. President Biden's son, Hunter, expected to face criminal charges brought by a special counsel by the end of this month. We are just learning that late tonight from a new legal filing. This document seeming to suggest that this is connected to multiple charges about Hunter Biden's taxes and possession of a gun while he used illegal drugs. In this filing, the special counsel, David Weiss, you see part of it here, says by September 29th, he plans to return a grand jury indictment against the president's son. That's just 3 weeks from now. Remember how all this sort of drama started to unfold here. Hunter Biden and his attorneys thought they had a plea agreement, a plea deal with prosecutors on a bunch of tax charges that would lead to the dismissal of the gun charges, a few tax charges. The whole thing fell apart in court in Delaware, and that prompted the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, to elevate David Weiss from a federal prosecutor to a special counsel. We've got this covered from every angle tonight. Monica Alba is at the White House. Our legal analyst, Danny Savalos, is standing by, too. But I want to start with Ken Delanian. Ken, help us understand the new details from this filing and what else we're hearing now from Hunter Biden's team.
Hallie, this is the logical consequence of the collapse of the Hunter Biden plea deal. There's a time clock, and what the special counsel is saying today is that he will indict Hunter Biden, potentially on both tax and the gun charges, before September 29th, because that's what the speedy trial clock demands. And in its own filing, as part of a status update to the judge, Hunter Biden's lawyers are saying, no, wait a second, we're following the agreement that we made on this gun charge, which was a diversion agreement where the prosecution agreed to drop the charges if Hunter Biden follows through with certain conditions. The problem is the prosecution does not agree that that's a binding agreement. They say the probation office never signed off on it. So there's a disagreement there. Eventually, the judge is going to have to decide that. But it really does appear like we're going down this road where Hunter Biden is going to be charged. And David Weiss, the special counsel, does not have to restrict himself to the charges that were in the plea deal. You know, there was some reporting that there was also a felony tax evasion charge that was being contemplated. And certainly we've seen some investigators go to Congress and say they thought that charge was merited. So this could become much more serious for Hunter Biden, Hallie.
Talk about then the timeline between now and this date, September 29th, because it's not super firm. It's not like on that day we definitely know that indictment will drop. It could happen sometime before then, et cetera, right?
That's right. And the likely places that it would happen would be in the District of Columbia or the Central District of California, because those are the places where the tax avoidance happened. And so presumably there would have to be activity in those districts, which may be happening in secret right now, for all we know, if these are grand jury matters. Yeah. But that's exactly why David Weiss got the special counsel authority, so he could bring the cases in any jurisdiction that was relevant. And you're right, this could drop at any time between now and September 29th.
Ken Delanian, I know you'll be watching. Thank you. Let me bring in our aforementioned legal analyst, Danny Savalos. Tell me what you are reading from the tea leaves in this filing now from the special counsel.
Well, if I'm Hunter Biden's counsel and Hunter Biden, I'm pretty confused and frustrated at this point, because keep in mind, a matter of weeks ago, Hunter Biden was planning to go into court with his attorneys, and they thought everything was going to get wrapped up. So it begs the question, what did the government have at the time that they were willing to let Hunter Biden enter into a diversionary agreement, but at the same time, apparently they didn't think the investigation was finished. So why would you let a defendant even consider a diversionary agreement, which, by the way, almost never happens statistically, particularly in the District of Delaware? So why do that if you're continuing to investigate them? And now that the special counsel presumably is looking in places like the Central District of California and he's going to indict. Well, why wasn't that part of the consideration the first time around if it really was a global resolution? All in all, very confusing, but really all roads at this point probably lead to an indictment in the Central District of California, given the special counsel's broader geographic area to seek venue.
Danny Savalos, thank you very much. Let me bring in Monica Alba live from just outside the White House. The president has consistently stood by his son, Hunter. Monica, we have seen that. We have seen Hunter Biden at some of these public events linked to his father, of course, even just in the last few months here. Here's what he said back in May when the president was asked about the investigations by Stephanie Ruhle over at MSNBC. Let me play that.
First of all, my son's done nothing wrong. I trust him. I have faith in him. And it impacts my presidency by making me feel proud of him.
And Monica, that is similar to what we have heard from the president all along as it relates to his son.
Yeah, that has certainly been his tone, Hallie. This is a president who consistently says that he's proud of Hunter, that he supports him, and specifically, he's very concerned about his road to recovery after battling addiction for years. And so this is a president and first lady that, of course, have those titles, but they also are approaching this as a mother and father who are very concerned here. And so when we thought a few weeks ago that this plea deal could come together, there was this huge sense of relief because they thought that perhaps this could be wrapped up and they could put this behind them. And that is really what they were looking forward to, according to sources that I have talked to. And so when that all blew up, it was this sense of disappointment, but knowing that publicly they're not going to weigh in on any of the specifics of this case. And that was certainly what we saw when the special counsel was anointed here and really named and added to the case in that formal way. And we know that the White House has been very specific to say that there is total separation between their administration and the Department of Justice in terms of what's happening with these various probes, and that they're never going to weigh in on that specifically, but that the president will say from a family perspective that, of course, he does support his son. But it is coming at a time where certainly this will weigh heavily on him. And we know this really does take an emotional toll behind the scenes, as it would on any kind of family. Hallie.
Monica Alba, outside the White House for us. Mon, thank you. So listen, some dramatically hot weather is just totally sizzling so much of the country when, quite honestly, that should not be happening. It just should not be this hot this late in the year. More than 85 million of us are sweating it out under heat alerts. And look at this stretch, 21 states from Phoenix to Texas up to the Northeast. We are talking record-setting heat. Something like 50 records could end up broken today. You see Dallas and Houston above 100, Richmond 100. Some of these spots are 10 degrees above average, and some schools are really struggling because of it. Some are shutting down. Some are sending kids home early because this heat is so dangerous. Keep in mind that there are some schools in some parts of the country that don't really have the right air conditioning for this kind of unprecedented heat. Look at Boston, for example.
We know that the heat begins earlier on in the summer when the school year is still going here in Boston, and that it's lasting when the school year is beginning to start as well.
The heat's also potentially straining the power grid in Texas, with the electric company there putting a weather watch in place today through the end of the week because they think there's going to be a lot of demand as people switch on those air conditioners to try to stay comfortable. This late season heat wave comes as we have all just together lived through the hottest summer ever recorded. Congratulations to us, I guess. Every month, June, July, August, hit a record for the hottest that each of those months has ever been. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is standing by, but I want to get to Aaron Gilchrist first, who is outside. Sorry, Aaron, here in Washington, where it felt like at some points predicted to be at least 106 degrees. We don't get that in September, even in swampy Washington.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this really strong breeze just blew by, but it's so hot it doesn't even matter. It's just like, what's the point? What's the value in that when you have heat like this that we're dealing with here in D.C.? The heat index here in the city just now down to 100 degrees, the feels-like temperature. We just heard that Dulles Airport in Northern Virginia hit triple digits for the first time ever today with the recorded temperature there at Dulles. And that's been the reality for cities and towns all up and down the eastern seaboard, from the mid-Atlantic here up through the Northeast, also including Texas, where they're looking at 109 feels-like temperature right now. Schools, as you noted, are just not used to having to deal with this sort of heat as you look at places there in the Northeast. And the schools that couldn't handle it, the ones that don't have air conditioning or don't have air conditioning that really can do the job for hundreds or thousands of kids in any particular building had to close. They're virtual in Baltimore for a lot of the schools there. Some of the schools opened but closed early because of the heat. Parents, students are thinking about the reality of not being able to learn because they're so focused on trying to stay cool. I want you to hear what some parents and students told us today.
The fans, they barely keep up with everything, and the halls get packed between every class, so it's horrible.
It's probably a good idea to let them out early, just so they don't suffer in the class.
There are heat emergencies in effect in cities like here in Washington, D.C. and other places headed up toward the north there, Hallie, and those are going to be in place tomorrow as more places are looking at getting temperatures right around 100 degrees in some cases again.
Aaron Gilchrist, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Michelle Grossman, let me bring you in. The question that everybody has, right? Okay, so when are we going to stop having to sweat it out?
Well, it's going to take some time. Some of us already saw some relief. The Northeast is going to take a couple days. And my district, Southeast Pennsylvania, Bucks County, we dismissed early today. We're dismissing early tomorrow, and that's going to be determined on Friday. So we're not alone. I could feel the heat where I am, too, and the kids are feeling it, too. 87 million people impacted. Hallie, this isn't just dangerous heat. We're looking at record-breaking heat day after day after day, month after month, and we're talking about all-time records as well. And it just continues to go on and on. We're looking at heat advisories, heat watches, heat warnings. Phoenix, you're under a heat watch. Dallas under excess heat warnings. Dallas have broken so many records this whole summer. We're looking at temperatures soaring over the next couple of days. This heat is actually going to expand and stay in place. It's the Northeast where we're going to get the break, but it's going to take a couple of days to get there. Heat advisories for Buffalo, New York City, down to D.C. You saw where Aaron was. We're looking at temperatures in the hundreds. It feels like 107 there. These are the temperatures right now. We're looking at 97 in D.C., 98 degrees in Raleigh, 92 in Montgomery. So hot in the South Central states as well. They went back to school last month. Houston 99, Del Rio 101, Dallas 102. But it feels warmer than that once you put that heat index in there. Here's the relief. It's a cold front. It's going to sweep through, but it's going to take a little while to get there. Just a little hint. Minneapolis yesterday was in the upper 80s. Today, they're in the mid-60s, so a 20-degree drop. And we're going to feel that as we go throughout time here. But not tomorrow. We're looking at temperatures into the 90s as we go throughout time here. Also, by tomorrow, we're looking at temperatures in the 90s. So here's a cold front, so it's not quite there yet. Now, this cold front is going to bring some storms as well. We're seeing that at this hour. But look at the South Central states. Still so warm. 105 in Dallas. Probably will break yet another record of 104 tomorrow. And then as we go throughout the weekend, feeling very fall-like in portions of the Great Lakes, Chicago into the mid-70s, Buffalo into the mid-70s, low 70s on Monday. And then here's our relief finally, back to more normal-like temperatures. Saturday, 83, 82. That's good news for all the kids who have sports outdoors over the weekend. Monday, we're looking at 80 degrees. Boston into the 70s by Monday. But this heat holds on really long in portions of the South Central states. No relief in sight. San Antonio in the triple digits. Same story in Baton Rouge. We're looking at Mobile in the 90s as we go throughout the next couple of days. So I mentioned that cold front. That's the relief that is on the way, but it comes at a price. So here's that cold front. You can clearly see where it is from the Great Lakes all the way through the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, all these little pop-up storms where you see those brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're seeing some really heavy rainfall. And that's because that cold front is moving into that really warm air, and that's going to be the same story tomorrow. This yellow area, that's the likeliest chance for seeing the strongest storms with winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some hail, an isolated tornado or two. That's not the biggest threat, but it's not zero either. So we're going to continue to watch this. And then as we go throughout Thursday, now the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, New England could see some strong storms from Philadelphia to D.C., Williamsport. We're going to see, it's going to take a little time to feel that relief, but 27 million at risk as that cold front starts to move through. Again, winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. Could see some hail and also the chance of a tornado. Hallie?
Well, speaking of weather that might be building here, we have just learned in the last hour that Tropical Storm Lee out in the Atlantic here has now been upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane. We know that it's not imminently going to hit the East Coast, right? But I know that's something you're watching.
Yeah, you summed that up perfectly. So we're hot in the U.S., we're hot in the tropics. We made it to that Category 1 status barely, but still just shows the potential that this storm has. So 75-mile-per-hour winds. We're moving at 14 miles per hour, but we do expect that forward speed to slow down. So we're going to take a little time here. By the weekend, we're talking about Puerto Rico, the Lesser Antilles. But take a look. I think this is what stands out the most. It kind of shows you how warm the Atlantic is, and the ingredients are favorable, low wind shear. So by Thursday, Category 2. By Friday, Category 3. Category 4. That is a dangerous major storm by Saturday. We're not expecting a direct impact into the Leeward Islands or Puerto Rico, but could see some rough surf. And then, Hallie, we're going to be talking about this because we expect it to take a turn, but that kind of has a lot of factors in place that we need. Area of high pressure, also cold front. So we're going to talk about it for the next week and a half, I'm sure. Back to you.
We will. Michelle, thank you so much. Appreciate it. So listen, in just the last few hours, we are learning more about how an escaped killer in Pennsylvania pulled off his prison break. Take a look at this video. This is Danelo Cavalcante in the prison yard Thursday morning, right before he got out. So watch. He's in the left. He's in the shirt. There he goes. Boom. Sort of puts himself parallel to the ground and then, like, shimmies up that wall, those two walls there. Gets up to the roof, gets over the roof, jumps, apparently, according to police, this razor wire fence that surrounds the prison, gets out. He's now been out for 7 days, and the perimeter is getting even bigger. There have been some new sightings, so police are expanding their search area to 7 miles, with the manhunt keeping some schools in the area shut down even today. We're also learning today that another inmate who got out back in May also got out in a very similar way by climbing up onto the roof. Different situation, though. That guy was caught almost right away, only about a half mile from the prison. Emily Aketa is joining us now. Emily, you know, what are we hearing from prison officials, from police, about this particular escape? Because it's not, you know, I think what people think of in the movie, Shawshank Redemption, where you're, like, chipping away at a tunnel for 18 months or whatever to try to get out. I mean, this is the guy, like, shimmies up right in full view of a security camera here.
Yeah, a lot of questions being asked towards police and security guards at this hour. You know, you think about that earlier escape back in May, and police and prison authorities had said that they considered the physical barriers. What could they do to the infrastructure to make it more secure? But they didn't consider the human element, they say. Someone's ability to literally shimmy their way, as you can see in that really stunning video, to use their hands on one side, feet on the other, shimmy their way up and scaling the wall that way. For that reason, they're now looking at even more extensive ways to ramp up security at the Chester County Prison. Here are some of the ways, take a look here, that they describe: fully enclosing all outside exercise yards, and that exercise yard is where both the inmate back in May and then Cavalcante escaped from, installing more security cameras across the premises, also adjusting officers' positions outside. And Hallie, we've talked a lot about the similarities between the cases back in May and then Cavalcante escaping just last week, but there's also a few key differences. Back in May, a tower guard essentially had eyes on the prisoner the entire time, so he was apprehended within 5 minutes. In this case with Cavalcante, no one noticed that he had escaped. He essentially got an hour head start between the time that he escaped, scaled the wall earlier in the morning, and the time the prison was actually shut down. And now here we are, day 7, the manhunt continues.
If they don't find this guy soon, are they going to keep schools closed, Emily? Because I have to think that this manhunt has had people there in Chester County where you are on edge.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that school officials are going to have to address every single day moving forward, especially as we continue to see the search zone shift and expand as they get hundreds of new tips, as they get new sightings. The latest sighting coming in not far from where I'm standing, a resident reporting that he was seen in their backyard in the creek bed. They called police last night. They canvassed the area, but to no avail. And I think that speaks to, not only is this disruptive to the everyday lives, road closures like what you're seeing behind me, there are schools closed, there are businesses either closed or just really seeing really slow business, but also just how emotionally taxing it is. People aware that there is this murderer on the loose, and they believe in this area. They do believe he is inside the current perimeter. Here's more from police about how they're hoping this really intense heat is actually working in their favor. Take a listen.
It's a difficult existence out there for somebody that's trying to do this. That will definitely take its toll. But imagine if you're being hunted. It adds a whole different level of stress as opposed to you're out there trying to find somebody. That level of stress has to be wearing on him.
And Cavalcante was just sentenced for murdering his girlfriend last month. Authorities encouraging people to use exercise caution moving forward. They are offering a reward up to $20,000 now. That was bumped up from $10,000, Hallie.
Emily Aketa, thank you very much. In just the last 20 minutes, we are learning the Fulton County District Attorney wants the judge overseeing former President Trump's election trial in Georgia to keep the names of future potential jurors a secret. That DA, Fani Willis, says doing that would prevent harassment and doxing after the names of the Fulton County grand jurors were made public, as is the case under Georgia law. She also wants an order that would guarantee cameras would not show the jurors. Because, oh, by the way, in Georgia, there are cameras in court, as we saw today. You are looking at the historic first shots of a hearing in this case, with the judge sitting down just before denying a motion from two of Mr. Trump's co-defendants who wanted to separate their cases from each other. So that means Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesebro are going to have to go to court on October 23rd, since they asked for a speedy trial. Remember, they're facing charges as part of this 19-person conspiracy that they illegally tried to overturn Mr. Trump's legitimate election defeat in Georgia in 2020. It comes as we're getting some never-before-heard details from prosecutors. They're suggesting they could call something like 150 witnesses, and they say a trial could take 4 months. That doesn't even include jury selection here, and it doesn't include if somebody like Mr. Trump wants to testify. The judge, with all the legal filings and the back and forth that's happening, he's kind of skeptical of that timeline. Watch.
If we compress our timeline to 40-something days, our ability to even be able to really weigh those and think through these issues, again, it just seems a bit unrealistic to think that we can handle all 19 in 40-something days.
Remember, all 19 co-defendants in this case, you see them here, they are waiving their rights to appear in person for their arraignment. They've all pleaded not guilty. We'll be watching for the next hearing sometime soon. So listen, in just the last few hours over on Capitol Hill, the top Senate Republican is making clear he wants to move on from questions about his health. In his first comments on what happened, this topic, since his second freeze up in a matter of weeks. In a couple days since the congressional doctor ruled out a stroke or seizure disorder for Senator Mitch McConnell. He is saying tonight that that doctor's note should be the end of it.
What Dr. Monahan's report addressed was concerns people might have that some things that happened to me did happen. Well, they didn't. And it's really, I have nothing to add to that. I think you pretty well covered the subject.
That defense coming after this moment a week ago today when McConnell, who's 81, was asked about running for re-election and then was seemingly frozen, not able to speak for something like 20, 30 seconds. NBC's Sahil Kapoor is on Capitol Hill for us here. And, you know, McConnell is sort of clearly in watching his comments today when he was asked repeatedly about this by reporters, did not want to engage on this issue. He didn't want to engage on this topic. He is, to a degree, engaging with his fellow senators on the Republican side behind the scenes on this, though, right?
He is, Hallie. He has to engage with those fellow Republican senators because they're the ones who decide whether or not he stays in this job. The other 48 Republicans are the only people who can remove him from this job if they choose to. There's no indication at this moment that any such thing is afoot. McConnell is trying to convey the message that he is fine, that all is well, that he does not intend to go anywhere. He, while speaking to reporters at that press conference that I and many others attended several hours ago, he said he's going to finish his 2-year term as Senate Republican leader, which expires in January of 2025. He said he's going to finish the remainder of his Senate term as a senator from Kentucky, which expires in January of 2027. And he did not say whether he plans to seek another term, or whether he plans to step down as leader and or retire after that. McConnell not engaging on that topic, but yes, trying to tamp down on the idea that his health concerns present a threat to his ability to function as leader. We asked a lot of Republican senators to react to this, and let's play some of what they had to say.
If he has gone through a protocol that's appropriate for Leader McConnell's condition, I think that should settle the issue.
I am behind Senator McConnell, continuing to do his job.
Is this going to be a distraction? And, you know, is he able to do the job?
I'm concerned that we're going to have a nation that's led by people who are checking out.
Now, Romney, despite those generational concerns he was just expressing there, told me yesterday he does still support McConnell to be leader, and the one person of those 4 Republican senators who sounded more skeptical of McConnell was someone who didn't vote for him last time to begin with. So no indication that the needle has moved quite yet, but, you know, these straws are piling on the camel's back, Hallie. The only question is if and when the straws continue, whether it's going to break.
Sahil Kapoor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Some news just coming into us tonight. A federal judge has sided with the Biden administration, ordering Texas to take out those, you see them here, these very controversial floating buoys that Texas put in the river between its state, basically, and Mexico to keep out migrants. Buoys were put in place back in July, complete with razor wire, apparently meant to keep migrants from being able to cross into Texas. Remember, the Biden administration sued the state and Texas's governor to try to get this stuff removed. NBC's Guad Venegas is joining us now. It seems, Guad, even though this particular ruling is a win for the Biden administration, the legal fight ultimately is not over yet, right?
It's not, Hallie. The governor already said they do intend to take this to a higher court if they need to the Supreme Court. All of this is part of the Lone Star operation that was launched in Texas, where the governor decided to use state resources to patrol the border. This includes launching the National Guard at the border, also using the Department of Public Safety, the state troopers to look for undocumented migrants. And now these buoys that have been quite controversial, not only within the United States, but also with Mexico, because of course, this is the river that separates Mexico from the United States. In fact, before they had ordered Texas to move the buoys further into the U.S. territory or further away from Mexico. So the judge has decided that Texas has to remove these by September 15th. In that court decision, the judge wrote that in order for Texas to have those buoys installed, they would have had to ask for permission from the Army Corps of Engineers, because this is an area that's controlled by the federal government. They did release a statement today that's being shared by the Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Twitter. In that statement, the governor indicates that Texas will appeal. He says that the court decision merely prolongs President Biden's willful refusal to acknowledge that Texas is rightfully stepping up to do the job that he says should have been doing, that the government should have been doing all along. And of course, he says Texas is prepared to take this fight to the Supreme Court. Hallie.
Guad Venegas, we will see if it makes it there. Thank you very much. Appreciate you bringing us that developing news. Coming up here on the show, officials say thousands of people now do not have homes in Brazil. Why they're warning this situation, this crisis, could get even worse. Plus, a song that kind of sounds like Drake and The Weeknd was just submitted for a Grammy. Thing is, neither artist had anything to do with it. We're going to explain coming up in our 5 Things. Tonight, a race against time to save an American who is stuck in a cave, sick, more than 3,000 feet underground in Turkey. We're talking about 40-year-old Mark Dickey, who was on a caving expedition in the 3rd deepest cave in Turkey on a team with 14 other explorers. That's when he got really sick with apparently gastrointestinal bleeding. Now he's got to be hoisted out to get medical help. Raf Sanchez is joining us now. How is he doing? Where are they in this very urgent and desperate push to try to save him?
Very urgent, very desperate. Hallie, this may be the beginning of one of the largest and most complex cave rescues we have ever seen. Here's the deal. As you said, Mark Dickey is a 40-year-old American, and Hallie, he is himself an expert in cave rescues, but he is now some 3,000 feet deep in the 3rd deepest cave in Turkey. He was part of an expedition that went underground last week. He started suffering gastrointestinal bleeding, basically internal bleeding in the stomach, and he now is stuck underground, unable to get out. I want to give you the latest update from the Turkish Caving Federation. This is at 3:30 Eastern time. They say the latest update from the cave rescue teams is that Mark's condition is stabilizing. His bleeding has stopped and he's able to walk with assistance, but it is not possible for him to get out without a stretcher. The teams are continuing to set up rope lines inside the cave to remove the stretcher, and they say, Hallie, the removal of Mark is expected to begin in the next couple of hours. And the way this is going to work, in theory, this is incredibly complicated, but the way it's going to work in theory is that you are going to have basically a series of relay teams who are going to pass this stretcher one to another. So you'll have a Turkish team at the entrance to the cave responsible for the first 600 feet. You might have a Polish team or a Bulgarian team responsible for the next 600. And their hope is that kind of hands by patient hands, they're going to be able to work their way through this unbelievably complicated cave shaft with this stretcher carrying Mark Dickey and get him to the surface. Hallie, the way they were able to stabilize him underground was by bringing both blood and frozen plasma down into the cave to this base camp where he's at now. And now it's up to this rescue team at a sort of operations center back on the surface to try to plan and then pull off this very complicated rescue.
It is just incredible to think about. So many people around the world are thinking of him, hoping he gets out safely. I know you'll be all over it. Raf Sanchez, thank you so much. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, officials in New York say there is a warrant out for the arrest of Drew Barrymore's alleged stalker. That's after he didn't show up to get a GPS ankle monitor fitted. Chad Michael Bustow was arrested in August after police say he was riding a bike up private driveways in the Hamptons looking for the star, looking for Barrymore. Officials say they don't know where he is. Number 2, Pennsylvania State Police say nearly 50 children and 2 adults were taken to a hospital in Pennsylvania after a school bus and a tow truck collided today. Officials say most of the kids, thankfully, were okay, and that the bus driver, the tow truck driver, had moderate injuries. That's how they described it. They think the truck driver had some kind of a medical emergency before crashing into the bus. Number 3, a man in Florida has been arrested after he allegedly tried to cross the Atlantic in a homemade hamster wheel kind of thing. The Coast Guard says they intercepted him something like 70 miles off the coast of Georgia because, that thing he was traveling in was not considered safe. He allegedly refused to leave, saying he had a bomb and threatening to harm himself. Number 4, the Biden administration says it has canceled oil and gas leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, the ones that remain. This is a reversal of a Trump-era decision. And the Interior Secretary says this is happening so that no one will have the rights to drill for oil in one of the most sensitive landscapes on Earth. Number 5, AI music may make its Grammy debut. The head of the Recording Academy is telling the New York Times that a song that used AI to basically sound like Drake in The Weeknd is absolutely eligible for an award because a human is behind its creation. Now, the song, remember this, right? That AI Drake song, Weeknd song, was taken down from streaming services, but the internet did its thing and spread it everywhere. So perhaps it ends up getting submitted for a Grammy. When we come back, Beverly Hills pushing back hard against viral videos and headlines suggesting it's in some kind of smash and grab retail crisis. Our new interview with the mayor who says, hey, wait a sec, that's not right. Plus, a ruling making history in Mexico. Next. The future of TV as we know it may be on the ropes with a new fight between Disney and Spectrum, that huge cable operator. Perhaps the knockout punch. Now, you might be out in front of this whole thing. Maybe you don't have cable. You are streaming us here on NBC News, after all. 2.5 million more Americans cut the cord at the start of the year. Now, only about half of everybody in this country actually has cable, 58%. That is the lowest number since Home Improvement and Roseanne were the biggest shows in the country in 1992. But still, something like 75 million people have cable, right? Half the country, 58%, that's still 75 million people. And since Friday, a fifth of them cannot get what they paid for, specifically ESPN and ABC. These are the messages that are now popping up for Spectrum customers. Messages asking people to beg Disney for a fair deal. So all these customers are missing stuff they want to see. College football games, the U.S. Open. If this doesn't get settled by Monday, they're going to miss Monday Night Football, too. Spectrum's CEO says their company's paying too much, threatening Disney in a call with investors, saying we're either moving forward with a new collaborative video model or we are moving on. It's a messy public fight, and Disney's clapping back. They're saying, hey, they're telling people, fine, go to streaming. Go to Hulu, which, by the way, they own. They're basically asking people to switch away from cable and get into the streaming biz. Let me bring in Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver, who's joining us now. Interesting dynamics here because Disney's trying to bring more people under its Hulu streaming wing. Spectrum wants to not pay out the nose, but ultimately what may happen is all the people who want to watch may end up paying more no matter what.
Yeah, viewers are caught in the middle. About 15 million people, mostly Los Angeles and New York. That's where Charter and Spectrum have heavy presence. But this is just the beginning and just the latest salvo in the fact that content costs are so high that they're driving cable operators to make us pay more as consumers, and they're not going to keep paying more for these heavy costs from the broadcasters. Prices have doubled since 2015 from the cable and broadcast networks to the carriers, and they just don't want to carry it anymore. This is just the latest.
So when you look at this, right, this fight between Disney and Spectrum, fine. What does it say to you about this being a proxy battle for the broader, issue of the future of TV? Because as we talked about, Disney wants people to go stream. Just tonight, they're like, hey, go to our basic Disney Plus for just $2 a month. They're trying to get people over there, and they're not the only ones either.
Yeah, they're not the only ones at this at all. And when you think about it, only half the country is actually watching cable or broadcast TV. The rest is streaming it on platforms like this and other places. So there's the issue there, but also the fact that the bundle, the big cable bundle that was the big promise for the last decade, is finally coming unraveled, and Disney's right in the middle of it. They have a place to take people. That's through their streaming services, Disney, Disney Plus. That's where they want people to end up, or Hulu, as you mentioned. So this is just the beginning and just the latest salvo also in this battle.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, Caleb, and I know you would never get in front of your skis to make a prediction, but give me sort of a reported analysis here. Do experts think this is going to get worked out fairly soon, or no?
No, I don't think anybody thinks this is going to get worked out anytime soon, because they're just not going to pay more on the Charter Spectrum side of things, and they're just going to have companies like Disney pull their content off of their services, causing more people to cut the cable, so to speak.
Caleb Silver, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's take you out west, where tonight the mayor of Beverly Hills is trying to fight back after a viral video that claims to show that famous 90210 zip code in a retail crisis. Here's one of those TikToks. You can see it shows a bunch of closed stores. It got attention with headlines like RIP Beverly Hills, quote unquote crime wave, quote unquote desolate wasteland. The mayor is telling our team tonight, hey, none of this is real. Watch.
None of the stores they showed were actually in Beverly Hills. I don't know of any stores that shut down as a result of crime or criminal activity.
That crime he's talking about is that spike in so-called smash and grabs across high-end stores in the L.A. area. Not recently, at least in Beverly Hills, but L.A. more generally. Look at this. This is just from last week, right? A couple of thieves, 3 of them, actually, hitting up a jewelry store in Pasadena. They stole $500,000 worth of stuff. Then there was this early last month. Dozens of people in masks swarming that Nordstrom in a mall in the northern part of L.A. County, taking a whole bunch of fancy bags and some other stuff, totaling $350,000. I want to bring in Dana Griffin, who is live for us in 90210 in Beverly Hills for more on this one. We've just laid this out here, right? The pushback from the mayor. How serious does he think this is, that reputationally this kind of conversation is happening about his town?
Well, it's so serious, Hallie, that he had to meet with us and set the record straight. And to set the record straight just from our mouths, there is no desolate wasteland here. This is a bustling area. We're seeing families and couples shopping. The stores are open. There's just one building that is empty, and it has a leased sign on it. We called the realtor to get some answers. What happened? Who's moving in? He tells us it's confidential, but there's going to be some major announcement in a couple months. So this isn't a situation where people are not coming here because they are feeling unsafe. One thing we have noticed, a lot of the shops, some of the doors are locked, they're closed. You have some private security standing outside to help deter what could be some potential criminal activity. And even the mayor says that they've gone to great lengths to make sure that they are keeping this area safe, whether it's drones. He tells me they can actually have someone in handcuffs within 2 minutes. Listen to what else he told me.
We have drones that fly 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 2,500 cameras that monitor the streets 24/7. We have a real-time watch center where we have not only police officers, but security people who also patrol our streets, who watch cameras all the time.
Emmerich Gold told me that the last time they had a smash and grab was at least a year ago. So he wants people that are seeing this video to realize that this is not the reality, and we've seen it for ourselves, Hallie.
Talk about the bigger picture here, right? Because there is the reality. I mean, and you're making very clear that it's not Beverly Hills, the mayor says. But these smash grabs are pretty high profile. I mean, we've covered them here on this show. You've had this conversation with me on this show about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Los Angeles is the second most populous city in the country, so you're going to have more crime in this area. And a lot of people, including law enforcement and even the mayor, is blaming some of the legislation that has been put in place, which decriminalizes a lot of these particular thefts. You can walk into a store right now, and if you're stealing something that's under $1,000, that is considered a misdemeanor. So when you think about consequences, there are people who are asking for the state legislature to do something about it so that we don't see these sort of smash and grabs that have gone viral. Hallie?
Dana Griffin, thank you so much. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our foreign desk has done it for you. Here's some of what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of Brazil, at least 21 people have been killed and 1,600 out of their homes after a terrible storm ripped through the southern part of the country. Huge flooding. You're seeing some of it here. Roofs ripped off of homes, cars flipped over or totally underwater, and what officials there are labeling an extratropical cyclone. Out of southern Europe, at least 14 people have been killed after bad storms and flash flooding there. Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria. Hundreds of homes were flooded, some swept away. Right now, rescuers are searching for at least one person still missing. Out of Mexico, the Supreme Court there has just decriminalized abortion all across that country, issuing this historic ruling late tonight, meaning anybody seeking an abortion or their providers cannot be criminally punished in any Mexican state. It also means all of the federal hospitals there will have to provide abortions to anybody who's seeking one. Coming up here on the show, an NBC News television exclusive, our Andrea Mitchell in a refugee camp in Chad. Her reporting on an investigation into potential genocide next in tonight's Backstory. Plus, new details tonight around the Spanish soccer chief after that forced kiss at the World Cup, why he's facing his most serious legal challenge yet. Time now to get the backstory, our behind-the-scenes look at how a story comes together and how it fits into our bigger picture. And tonight, we're taking you back to 2005, when our Andrea Mitchell traveled to Sudan with then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. See her there, reporting on an international pressure campaign to force the Sudanese government to stop the ethnic cleansing that forced thousands of refugees to escape into neighboring Chad. Well, today, nearly 20 years later, the story's not that different, significantly at least. In an NBC News exclusive, Andrea is reporting tonight from a sprawling refugee camp in Chad, where thousands of women and children are looking for safety from what the UN is investigating as another genocide in Darfur. This time, Andrea is traveling with UN Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. She is joining us now live from Chad. Andrea, we're so grateful to have you. You've been doing such incredible reporting, and you know that this segment is all about pulling back the curtain a little bit. Take us behind the scenes with you on what it's like to report from this part of the world here after you did it, you know, almost 20 years ago, too.
Well, first, there's the emotional impact of that, because there's 20 years later, this is an emerging genocide. It's being investigated, Hallie, as a genocide. Almost 400,000 people have left already, refugees, to Chad, more to neighboring countries, and 2,000 people a day just coming across the border to Chad. We were at that border today, and Linda Thomas-Greenfield was, talking about this, because she wanted to hear in person what has been reported to her. She was actually 40 years ago starting as a Foreign Service officer doing refugee reporting for the State Department, a young Foreign Service officer for all of Africa. Now each country has their own, refugee coordinator, but now that's her responsibility. I wanted to play a little bit of our interview where I asked her about how nothing has changed in 18 years since I was there. It was declared a genocide. Today, they sanctioned some of the leaders of one of the militias, the RSF. And to do that, they had to decide that they were mass atrocities. Now there's an investigation by the UN into reports of mass graves. There are actually photos of that that have been seen, horrendous photos. And so I asked her about the discouraging aspects of this for her and for the world.
What we see happening in Darfur right now pertains to what we saw happening in Darfur in 2004. So we have gone backward in those years, and that is why it is so important that we hold those responsible accountable. And I will, as you know, announce the sanctioning of senior individuals from the RSF who have been engaged in the commission of atrocities in Darfur.
So you asked about how it works to work in this area for us and for the U.S. diplomats. They ran into a problem with one of the local officials. So our helicopter, a UN helicopter, could not take off as scheduled. So we got there very late for the amount of time when we had to take off because there are no landing lights. So we had to take off before sundown. And a UN chopper, then a flight, then back to the capital where we are tonight in Chad. So it meant that we didn't have enough time to set up that interview. We didn't have, I met with some refugees. I went to the hospital. I talked to some of the doctors, but we couldn't do the extensive interviewing that we wanted to do, having, gone so far. But we got certainly a lot of reporting in the hours, the daylight hours we were on the ground.
Yeah, and that speaks to just the complicated logistics, Andrea, of a trip like this, when you're reporting it, not to mention, obviously, sort of the impact of doing the reporting itself.
And there was no internet, by the way, all day, so we couldn't go live from there. And it's spotty even here, but there was no communications at all the whole time we were on the ground. We are so used to having instant communications and being able to reach satellites with sat phones, and none of that existed. So,
Andrea,
but the focus is on the people, and that's what the UN ambassador is determined to make it.
And she's made it extremely clear with you, and as your presence there is attesting to. Andrea Mitchell, we thank you, your team, your producer, for being there, for bringing us this story. I appreciate it. Still to come here on the show, 3 men rescued just in time after sharks attacked their boat so hard it started to sink. Why that happened to their catamaran in the first place, and this incredible story of survival coming up. The head of the Spanish Soccer Federation is facing a new legal challenge, maybe his most serious yet, for what one soccer star says was a non-consensual kiss at the Women's World Cup. We're talking about Jenny Hermoso, who is now formally accusing Luis Rubiales of sexual assault. She's filing a criminal complaint that now clears the way for Spanish prosecutors to open a case against Rubiales. He already faces a handful of other challenges, including one by a governmental panel that could end up getting him booted off the Spanish Soccer Federation. But this criminal complaint, again, criminal, it appears to be the most serious thing against Rubiales we've seen so far, because under a sexual consent law passed in Spain last year, Rubiales could face a prison sentence of up to 4 years if he's found guilty, or a fine. Steph Young covers soccer for The Athletic and is joining us now. So, Steph, Rubiales says the kiss was consensual. Jenny Hermoso says it was not consensual, which means it was not consensual, right? He now is facing a lot of challenges, not just legally, but professionally. Is there any way that he stays in his position? He's already been suspended.
I don't think that there's a way that he stays in. There's too many things stacked against him. FIFA has provisionally suspended him. The various governors who are involved with La Liga some of them have issued criticism, La Liga being the Spanish, the local league. And there's just, I think, a little too much going on. He's losing some allies as well. Jorge Vilda just got fired, who was the coach of the women's national team. Right. So I think that the weight of all of these things will eventually leverage him out of there.
Can you explain why there are some commentators who are describing this, what's happening right now, as somewhat of Spain's Me Too moment?
Sure. It's kind of sparked this larger discussion about, the dignity, the bodily autonomy of women, especially coming from a federation that actually has a long history of allegations of misogyny. The previous coach, Ignacio Carrera, was in there for 27 years and also left under allegations of, sexist behavior. So this is a deeply entrenched situation. It's cultural, it's systemic. So I think when they're trying to address what, Luis Rubiales did, I think they're also addressing an entire culture that led to a mindset that said, I can do this to my player on the world's biggest stage.
Steph Young, thank you so much. Lots to watch on this one. Appreciate you being with us from The Athletic. Thanks. So an incredible story of survival out of Australia tonight. 3 men rescued from the middle of the ocean after tiny sharks attacked their boat so many times it started to sink. Here's Noah Pransky with more.
Tonight, 3 sailors stranded at sea, now safe after this incredible rescue, necessary when their 30-foot boat was attacked over and over again by small sharks for days, hundreds of miles off the coast of Australia. Here you can see half the boat submerged in water as rescue choppers circled above to save the 3 crew members. The 2 Russians and 1 Frenchman issued a distress call early on Wednesday when it was clear they couldn't make it back to land on their own.
The emergency beacon absolutely saved their life. It enabled the Rescue Coordination Centre to identify their precise location and tailor the most appropriate and quickest response to rescue them.
The sailors were supposed to go from the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu to the Australian city of Cairns as part of a years-long around-the-world journey. But they never made it because these cookie-cutter sharks, a small species, check them out, only 16 inches long, but certainly menacing, attacked the catamaran repeatedly. First, the boat started to take on water, but was able to trudge along for another 100 miles before the sharks attacked again, this time piercing its right side, and the boat then began to sink completely.
There's many reasons that vessels are attacked by sharks. However, the motivations of these sharks is unclear.
The sailors, according to Australian officials, all happy to be rescued unharmed, and their belongings all safe tonight as well. But the catamaran lost at sea, leaving the future of their grand round-the-world voyage up in the air. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
Our thanks to Noah for that, with those 3 guys expected to arrive safely in Australia in the next couple of hours. That does it for us for this hour. We've got a lot more for you coming up right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.